Welcome to the Pet Biz Project, the podcast for passionate pet business owners and entrepreneurs. In today's episode, I'm joined once again by Tricia from Mintrix Advisory. You might remember her from one of our most downloaded episodes on managing cash flow, but this time she's back to share her expertise on another game-changing topic for business owners: virtual assistants. We dive deep into the world of VAs, what they are, how they can transform the way you work, and the common myths and mistakes business owners often make when hiring them. Tricia shares her journey from hiring her first VA to now running a transparent and ethical VA recruitment service, including what to look for in a provider, red flags to avoid, and how to overcome the fear of delegation. It's a practical, eye-opening conversation that will help you free up time, reclaim your energy, and grow your business with the right support in place. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the Pet Biz Project, Tricia. It's great to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much. It is amazing to be back on the show. I can't believe time just absolutely flies.
And I think, it was probably about 2 years ago we recorded the last episode. And for those that don't know, Tricia was on about 2 years ago on our podcast talking to you about your business financials and how to manage cash flow. And it has actually been the most popular podcast episode in our series. And so I wanted to invite Tricia back onto the show to be able to talk to you about a different topic today, but something that's still very important for business owners. And we're going to be talking about virtual assistants because there's not many businesses out there these days that aren't using virtual assistants or thinking about using them to be able to help them to grow. So we really want to do a deep dive into all the different questions that you might have, the pros and cons, what are the things to look out for when hiring, and how to get the best hire in your business. And Tricia is the expert in that area. So I'm really looking forward to chatting today. But do you want to start, Tricia, by telling us just a little bit about your background and your business?
Yes, of course. Wow, what an introduction. So I started my business about 5 years ago in the business advisory space, which is what the first podcast was about, where we help a small business owner with different areas of being able to improve their business performance. So that might look like sales, it might look like operations, it might look like improving efficiencies. But the challenge that we just kept coming across was time management. Business owners, we want to do it all, but we seem to not have enough hours in a day. And what I found myself that helped well in my business was when I started hiring my first virtual assistant to be able to delegate some of my overflow, back end tasks, administrative, time consuming tasks. And that's sort of how it evolved to where we are today. And 6 months ago, so at the start of 2025, we started recruitment for our clients as well.
Fantastic. And how long have you been in that VA industry then?
Yeah, so we've been using VAs for about two plus years now in my business. And as my clients were starting to find themselves time poor, I was just like, oh, my VA could help a little bit with that. My VA could help a little bit with that. And yeah, one day we woke up and just like, you know what? Everyone's using my VA. You guys need your own.
Yeah, I know we've got a lot of experience here at Pet Biz Creatives as well with having VAs in our business over the years and currently. And, so I'm sure I'll be able to help give people as well some experiences as we go through. But I think it's just great that you've got that experience yourself as hiring VAs as well as helping others in that area.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it's the learnt journey of a small business owner. You once you work out what works really well, you want to now help others to achieve that as well.
So what inspired you to start providing VAs to small businesses?
Yeah, we had a couple of clients who kept coming to us seeking some help and advisory. And then we found that with the time poor challenge, I was delegating to my team, and then we started to refer to other VA agencies. The transparency model, which is one of the things we built and we'll go into in more detail, is that some VA agencies do have a large markup. Now there are other costs associated from things like office overheads, and other cost factors. However, we've built a transparent model where the client is able to know exactly how much their VA gets because they're the talent doing the work,
Mm.
as well as what us as the agency gets as well, so that there's nothing hidden in there, there's no hidden agendas, and it comes down to transparency. And that's what we want to change in the VA industry, to be able to show that, there's people behind the work that's being completed. And we don't want to treat our VAs just as another number. We want to care about them and know different aspects of their life, and how they can not only enhance our business, but our lives, and vice versa.
Yeah, and I think it's something I've experienced in the past working with people providing VAs for businesses is, as you say, the lack of transparency around what the VA is actually getting paid, but then how they're being looked after as well as being paid. Like whether they've got benefits and they're receiving internet access and technical support, things like that. But also, it's like it's just there's a lot of horror stories, I suppose, from especially with the Philippines, with VA businesses that are very much like a sweatshop, where they're working, in enclosed offices with no lighting, no, breaks and things like that. And so the people that I've spoken to are very much looking to avoid that experience. And I think it's great that you're providing that sort of ethical approach to hiring VAs, as well as making sure that, it's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I've been to the Philippines myself. I've met with my team members. We really want to foster this team environment where it's, the people that are helping us in our business. I want to know about them. I want to know about their family, about their children. I want to build this culture that we have, where we're celebrating birthdays, we're celebrating our wins, fostering that collaboration. Which, in my experience, when I had my first few VAs with other agencies and trying and learning about the industry, it was like you mentioned, they're all working, and it's not the best environment, especially if any of them are working from home. And there's that sense of loneliness and isolation that comes with that as well. We do want to avoid VAs, just sometimes it's a bit of imposter syndrome from, oh, I'm working with an international client that, maybe I'm not good enough for it. But it's like, well, you have all these other VAs in the same boat as you, and then they prop each other up. And if someone makes a mistake or doesn't understand the scope of a client, there's people to bounce off as well.
Yeah. And who are your typical clients then that you work with at the moment?
Yeah, so we work with a large variety of different clients. In the pet space, we are working with a handful of e-commerce businesses, vet clinics. However, outside of the pet industry, we do work with other trade-based businesses, mostly trades consisting of, for example, electricians and plumbers, through to more specialized trades as well, such as boiler making, signage installation, sock manufacturing is one that we've recently started working with.
Well, I mean, there's a virtual assistants are so valuable in any type of business, isn't it? That doesn't have to be a particular business model.
Correct. Yeah. Mostly it's the service based businesses, as they are working one on one with, let's say, a business owner who's still doing the invoicing on their own, still following up payments on their own. And that's where virtual assistant could really add value.
And I suppose for our listeners, whether it's somebody that, we want to make this podcast episode very valuable for those that are maybe never used a virtual assistant before, don't even really know how it works, right through to those that have had experience with VAs, but are looking to improve that experience going forward. If we could just take a step back and just explain to our listeners, like, what exactly is a virtual assistant if somebody's not aware, and how are they different from your traditional employees?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, with the virtual assistants, it's an actual human, like a person. I do get the question sometimes if it's AI, are they real? I'm like, yes, yeah, they're humans. So it's a person who is working remotely. Now you could get Australian based virtual assistants. That's not an area we specialize in, but there are other companies out there who do it. Our virtual assistants are working from the Philippines, and they can provide different areas of administrative, marketing, technical, or any other business support that can be done remotely, as opposed to working in your office.
And what types of tasks would a VA typically do?
The task list can really vary. I would say that if it's something that can be done on a computer, definitely, or over the phone. So those tasks can include things like, for example, emails or calendar management, tasks such as helping with scheduling, or in terms of emails, filing them away, triaging a certain way. For example, in my inbox, my VA team will identify things like, if it's client related or high priority, they tag it as a priority one. But if it's like a newsletter that I've subscribed to, it's like a priority four. So those are the sorts of things that uh, just the basics. In addition to that, a VA could do stuff like updating a CRM system for their client. Updating the scheduling system is for a trade based business, social media, management, engagement, perhaps even website updates if that's something that the business owner can train them in. So, for example, any of your e-commerce businesses out there who need help, updating product things in their Shopify, that's something that the virtual assistant could assist with, or writing blogs, mostly computer-based work, data entry, SMS, emails, calls, invoicing, document formatting. The list goes on.
Yeah. Gosh, it's endless, isn't it? Yeah, and I suppose my personal experience with having VAs in the business, we've had very generalist VAs that have been maybe working on administrative tasks and personal assistant kind of work, calendar management, things like that. But then we'll have very specialist VAs that are focusing like on Klaviyo experts or Shopify experts and things like that. So I suppose, that's where my next question, I suppose, is how do you match a VA to a business's specific needs, where they're needing support and help?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We always start with having a discovery session with the businesses that we want to work with. During that discovery session, I'll sit down with the business owner and work out where are the bottlenecks that the business owner needs to take care of, or what task could be delegated to a virtual assistant. We'll come up with a long list of all the things that could go to a remote worker. And from there, the business owner will then go through, yeah, maybe we could do that, maybe we can't do that. We'll tweak it a little bit, but that's where our the first scope is created. Once we have that first scope, we can then find someone with the right skill set to be able to complete the majority of those tasks. And some things that are more technical will require more, obviously, training and upskilling. However, generally speaking, I would say that all of our team members, administrative skills have to be really strong. Communication skills need to be really strong as well, just as your bare minimums. And then if a client has a particular Shopify or Klaviyo or any other platform requirement, we can look for a certain skill set. But I would say that, yeah, we always start with what the scope is.
Fantastic. Okay, so I want to ask, I suppose, what you was talking about with when you're hiring, sometimes people think that a virtual assistant is AI. And I suppose with AI becoming so prominent in everything that we do these days, that's would be understandable that somebody would think that. But can you tell us of some of the other myths or misunderstandings or misconceptions that people have around hiring VAs?
Yeah, of course. The biggest misunderstanding, I would say, is that the clients I work with, they think that the VA is just going to know exactly what they want. And
Mm,
VAs are excellent doers, but they're also not mind readers either.
yeah,
So, in saying that, the clients sometimes expect the VA to read their mind, and like any member of your team or any of your third party suppliers, from your accountant through to your marketing agency, you need to be giving clear instructions and being able to communicate so that the other party can understand you to provide that best work that they do.
yeah.
And having those systems and processes that your VA can help you build will help foster those good results. And we train our team to make sure that they're asking the right question. um, and an example is one of my clients said to their VA the other day, like, "Hey, can you design a stubby holder? Thanks, we're going to buy 200 of them." And the VA goes, well, first off, what's a stubby holder? So- and then secondly, like, what would you like it to say? Do you want a QR code? Do you want your
Yeah.
website? What text do I put? Do I put a photo? Do I just have a black background? Those are the sorts of things that we train the VA to. If you're asking the client a yes or no question and answer or a multi-choice, it's easier for the client to then help to articulate what they're thinking. If you say, I don't know what to do, or
what do you want?
It's much harder for the client to be able to explain. So we do quite a bit of training on asking the right questions.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think we've found in our experience with VAs, it's certainly improved within our team having very regular Zoom calls where we can discuss things as well, rather than it just being a back and forth or something on Slack. That we're, having those more open questions and open conversations can really help, sort of thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's not assuming, it's making sure that everything's clarified, whether that's by phone call, Slack, but it needs to be clarified and as less assumption as possible is best practice. That takes me to, I guess, the next point, which is an assumption that the VA is just going to magically be the answer to all business problems. Working with a virtual assistant is not a magic wand. It is someone to bounce your ideas off, someone to help you, someone in your corner who really cares passionately about what you're doing. And however, they can help you work on your business, but they're not the business. You're still the business owner. You're still driving the strategy. You're still driving the vision and the mission.
Yeah.
They're helping you along the way, especially in those administrative tasks. And at the end of the day, it's a team effort. There's no I in team.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And what would you say to a business owner then that thinks a VA can't really understand their brand messaging or their brand tone of voice and things like that?
Yeah, I would just say that you need clear guidelines and good onboarding. So, the first time you engage a marketing agency or a copywriter or even employees here in Australia, you still need to teach them and onboard them to learn, your tone of voice. You need to provide training, give them examples, have clear feedback. So I would highly recommend to start with maybe these three. Number one would be brand guidelines. So a bit of a brand kit, whether colors, fonts, values, tone, that sort of stuff. You could also start with examples of past work. That's number two. So providing examples of captions that are already on Instagram or examples of emails to copy the tone that you write in. And then provide those regular feedback loops. So tweak what needs to keep improving as well as the things that are approved quickly. Understand and identify that this is getting past the approval process in the first go, so I need to do more of that.
And do you find business owners are afraid of delegating to VAs?
Yeah, there is a bit of a fear of that. The reason for it is there's a lot of control that business owners like me and maybe like you as well feel that they need to have. And when you delegate to someone, you can worry that perhaps the work won't be done in a particular way that you might want it. But to overcome things like that control is to the things that we talked about, the brand guidelines, examples of past work, regular feedback. So where business owners are hesitant towards delegation, it's usually stems from something like, a bad experience or something they've tried to delegate in the past and, I'll just do it myself because they can't do it my way.
Yeah.
If you have that mindset, you can only do so much. You've only got 24 hours a day, less sleep, less time to eat, less time for weekends. You've only got so many hours in a day. So if you're not delegating, there's only so much you can grow and build your business.
Yeah. Okay, no, it all makes perfect sense. So how do you help clients overcome that fear of giving up control? Here's a stat you can't afford to ignore. 69% of consumers want video when learning about products. And yet most pet brands are still running the same worn-out ads, hoping for new results. If you're not keeping your content fresh, you're handing your customers over to other pet brands that are. At PetBiz Creatives, we deliver a steady pipeline of authentic UGC and polished studio video for your organic and paid ad use. No stress, no scrambling. Fresh content isn't optional, it's essential. Book your free strategy call at petbizcreatives.com/video.
Recommend to start small. So you could, for example, create a daily task list that your VA can do every day just to take some of the load off. So have a think about, what are you doing every day? I usually start my day with just checking emails, filing things away, checking phone messages, that sort of stuff. Might be guilty of the early morning scroll as well in the morning on social media. So have a look at what you're currently doing.
Mm.
You can do a task audit and see how much time you're spending on some of the low value tasks. Low value tasks being things that doesn't need you to complete, and then
Yeah.
see if you can see if that's your starting foundation to start delegating.
Yep. No, that's good advice. I found one thing I did with prior to hiring VA was having just a Google sheet, and over a period of a week, I jotted down absolutely everything that I spent every minute of my day doing, even it was just small admin minor tasks, right through to the bigger project work I was doing or calls I was taking. Putting everything in and then highlighting the rows that could be essentially done by somebody else with a system, a process, or some training in place. And it was just amazing doing that process to see exactly how much of what I'm spending my time doing could be done by somebody else, which would free me up for the bigger picture work. So
The more
it's
strategy, the critical thinking type.
yeah, but it's just amazing how much time we spend doing things that don't necessarily need to be done by us, which could really help the growth of our business if we just learnt how to delegate it.
Or we could take holidays too. That works.
Gosh, yeah, we need those. So, what's the signs that a business owner that you look for that a business owner is ready to hire a VA? Like, when do they go from just being, okay, I'm wearing all the hats, I'm doing everything myself, to like, okay, now it's time for me to start building a little bit of a team or having a virtual assistant in place?
Yeah, definitely some trigger points. Like we mentioned, holidays. So if anyone hasn't taken a break, um, in at least 6 months in their business. Business owners who are working nights and weekends as well. Business owners spending time on low value tasks. So think
Mm,
emails, think data entry. Business owners potentially missing opportunities. Are you missing any leads or delays in your follow ups? Is someone sending you a DM, for example, and you're just like, nah, I don't really check my DMs, but then you're just like, oh, there's a potential client there.
yeah.
Business owners stressed and burnt out. The to-do list just doesn't get any shorter. Those are some of the signs that I'd say, have you thought about getting a virtual assistant to help you in your business?
Yeah. All right. No, that makes sense. Great. And what does the onboarding process look like in detail? How, if somebody's thinking about hiring a VA, what would the steps be that onboarding process looks like?
Yeah, so we do a pretty thorough onboarding with our team members, and it is ongoing in the first month that they do start. The first once the client selects the right VA for them, we got a rigorous vetting recruitment process where we're aptitude testing. So, if someone says they can use Canva, I'll actually test Canva skills, ask for output, those sorts of things. So we do aptitude testing very thoroughly. Then we'll do personality testing. Then we'll do Loom videos, all before the business owner meets with the VA. But once the VA is actually selected, we'll do a 3-day onboarding with us. So that's 3 days with the Mintrix team. I always run day one so that we can teach a little bit about Australian business etiquette, the cultural differences. Australian business owners, we tend to be very direct and straightforward in our communication. Like, do
Yeah.
this, don't do this. And
Yeah.
that can be seen as rude, for example, in the Filipino culture. So we'll do a lot
Yeah.
of upskilling on different business etiquettes and culture and
Mm.
expectations. Even Aussie slang, like I usually spend about 30 minutes on day one just teaching the new VAs coming onto our team. Like I use, I actually didn't realize how much slang I used until people started asking me, hey, what does that mean? Like the other day, I literally said, yeah, guys, don't reinvent the wheel. Just
Yeah.
copy the slides from last time. And then they took one of the slides and it had a spin wheel on it. And I'm like,
All right. Literally.
I mean, there was a slide with a spin wheel. I meant,
Yeah.
yeah, copy some of the slides, not that one. But but that's my fault. Communications. it's when we work with the new VAs coming on boarded, we just make sure that they're understanding some of the basic slangs and customs. Another one is I have like a whole list, but another one is like no drama. We had a VA come up to us and say, "Hey, just I googled it, so I know what no dramas means." But my client kept saying no dramas, and I was
Yeah.
wondering why I was being so dramatic.
Yeah. Starting to worry.
You're just like, "No, just yeah, it just means no
Yeah.
worries." And yeah, but, you know, with ChatGPT and Google now, the VAs are just Googling it themselves. Anything they don't understand, they'll just put it into ChatGPT and it will explain it for you. And it does such a better job because 'cause I'm trying to explain reinvent the wheel, and I'm just like, "Nah, just put in ChatGPT or just do it."
Yeah, it does a much better job at explaining things, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, so that's our 3-day training and onboarding. But in the first couple of weeks, we'll do those weekly check-ins. We'll make sure that the VAs get started on you know, those recurring tasks and that the client and the VA are well aligned so that
Yeah.
they're on the same page, which is another slang.
Yes, you've got to be conscious about these things, don't you? So how much time does it take to get the VA up to speed then typically?
Yeah, it really depends on the complexity of the task. If we're looking at you know, data entry, copying and pasting type, you know, that's 1 hour to show you what to do and sorry, 10 minutes probably to show you what to do and off you go. But if we're looking at like more complex tasks, like so anything that's more simple admin or repeatable task, probably in 1 to 2 weeks, the VA should be able to set up the daily, weekly, monthly recurring task list. However, if it's like more technical or specialized or having to understand a drawing or a tone of voice or a decision making style, or having to like help create some systems and processes, you know, that can take 2 to 3 months. But it depends on how much time as well the business owner invests in their virtual assistant. If the business owner is spending 1 or 2 hours a day with the virtual assistant, they can really get off to a great start. But some of my clients as well, they're time poor and you know, you might only spend 1 to 2 hours a week with your VA.
Mm,
And
yeah.
it might be slower in terms of the feedback loop.
Okay. And are there any systems or like tools and software that businesses need to have in place before hiring a VA?
You don't need any systems because your VA could help you with setting up some process maps, SOPs, which is standard operating procedures, and actually drawing process maps. We use a program called Lucid Chart, or you can work it out in Canva how to do it as well. But we usually provide training around that. However, best practice would just be to have clear communication channels. So how are you currently communicating? Is it emails, WhatsApp, Teams, Slack, so on and so forth? Do you have a task management system or project management system? Think Monday.com, Asana, Trello, one of those task management system. And if you don't, Excel will do the job in the short term, as well as file sharing. So how are you going to send documents to each other? Is it over email? Can we use Dropbox, OneDrive? And just understanding like the security behind it as well, so that you know if you are sharing OneDrive and Dropbox, that you know you don't want anything confidential in there as well that you wouldn't share with others on your team.
Yeah. Okay. And with, I'd like to talk to you about failed relationships with VAs because I know from my own personal experience and also business owners that I've spoken to, just like having local in person employees here in Australia, sometimes you think you've got the right fit for the role and then you end up get the person in and it just doesn't work out. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you feel causes the most failed VA relationships and how we can avoid those?
I think it would be like a lack of expectations on either
Mm,
side. So it might be that and it's all the assumptions, right? So it might be the virtual assistant assuming that the client's going to do XYZ, or it might be the client assuming that the virtual assistant is just going to wave their magic wand and all of a sudden you're going to meet all your deadlines and get all these new clients because you're going to have, you know, an extra 20 hours a week.
yeah.
So it's just important to have like an agreed scope. So by the end of this week, you know, what are the key deliverables that we're going to do? What are the deadlines? How are we going to measure success? What are the daily, weekly, monthly tasks? And if we communicate well with both parties and
Mm.
do check-ins more regularly and have those feedback loops, it really
Yeah.
reduces the risk because you've chosen the right candidate, the right virtual assistant based on the
Yeah.
information you were given during the recruitment process. So
Mm.
ideally, if we've done everything right there, we really should have had the best 1% for you, which means
Yeah.
that if there is a failed relationship, it would come down to communication because we pre-screen, we aptitude test, and we
Yeah.
personality test.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, I think one of the processes I found helped me in my personal situation was having, like a 5-10 minute Zoom call first thing each morning, just to run through what's expected for the day, what we need to be focused on, and then provide more context around any of the specific tasks or projects, and then receiving like via Slack just a written summary of what had been achieved during the day, what had been completed, what was still outstanding, like a little checklist, things like that. Just, don't take a lot of time. But by that sort of 10-15 minutes out of my day, made sure that the whole day then became a lot more productive for both myself and the VA. So yeah, it's just those little things like you were saying that can really make sure that the relationship works well.
Yeah,
What are some of the red flags that business owners need to look out for in the VA providers that they might be dealing with when they're looking to hire?
one of the things would be that ideally, as a business owner, it'd be important for me to know what my virtual assistant was receiving in remuneration. So, I'd like to know the amount that they would be getting paid. So, have a bit of that transparency and ethically to know that. In addition, if a VA provider is kind of over promising, saying things like, we can do everything for any business instantly. I've been a little bit skeptical in terms of, like, what does the word everything mean for any
Yeah.
business? Like, I like clearly articulate what the VA would be able to assist with, as well as if there's no contracts or there's no service agreements, that'd be another red flag for me. And anything that's fairly vague. So if they're vague about recruiting, if they're vague about their vetting, if they're vague about the training, one thing that we do find that our clients like is knowing exactly what stage of the recruitment process we're at. What
Mm.
are the next steps? How many steps to go? And being able to guide them through that, as well as all the vetting that we do from age verifications through to all the training that we do as well and reference checks and things like that. So if
Yeah.
you're talking to VA providers, make sure you're asking the right questions to ensure that their process is going to be as seamless as possible for you.
Yeah, it's always been a red flag no matter who you're dealing with, isn't it? That if they're over promising, you can sort of immediately assume they're going to underdeliver. So, the more realistic and authentic somebody is, the better, I think. So, what mistakes do business owners often make when they're working with a VA? I know you've told us some. Are there any others that you'd mention?
I think we've already covered the most important one, which is you actually have to delegate. Like, there's no point having a virtual assistant if you're just going to do it all yourself still. So, the mistake would be business owners not delegating efficiently or effectively and holding all those thoughts themselves. I'd also like to talk about micromanaging. And, I like to keep updated with my team. We have a Monday.com shared board where I can see exactly what everyone's working on. It's understanding, what the priorities are and assigning those priorities rather
Mm.
than every 5 minutes like looking over their shoulder and being like, are you doing your job? Are you doing the right thing? It's having trust both ways and trusting the process as well, that it does take time for someone to get up to speed.
Okay. And what should business owners do if things aren't working out with their VA? What would you recommend?
It's identifying the problem and what the root cause is. And there's a few ways to do that. There's the 5 why method, like ask why 5 times. And throughout that process, it would be to identify where the gaps are. Once you identify the gap, it could be a skill gap. The VA might not know how to write a good prompt in ChatGPT. It might be a
Yeah.
communication gap. The VA might not understand what reinvent the wheel means. It might be a process gap, that they were following a process map that you created 3 months ago, but the
Yeah.
process has since changed. So
Yeah.
to identify exactly what hasn't worked, with what the root cause of that issue is, and then overcoming that by giving those specific, clear examples, feedback, and a timeline to be able to overcome it.
All right, fantastic. And when a business owner is looking to hire a VA, one of the things that they're going to be thinking about, I'm sure, is okay, I know I'm going to have to outlay money to pay this VA. Am I going to get a return on that investment? Is it going to be worthwhile me doing it, or am I just putting money down the drain? So, can you share some examples so that maybe people that haven't had a VA in the past, what are some examples of how VAs have helped transform a business and really create a good return on investment for them being part of the team?
We actually had a massive success story yesterday, where one of our new virtual assistants has been working with their client only for 4 weeks. And so we had a 4 week check in to sort of see how things were going. And we got feedback that the virtual assistant collected $30,000 in unpaid invoices.
Oh gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. But I mean, I don't like chasing payment. No one does, and it's so much harder when you're the business owner. I'm sure a lot of people listening can
Yeah,
relate. You don't want to be calling people saying, "Hey, you got an outstanding invoice. I can't deliver
yeah,
your services," because you want to help people. So yeah, whereas a virtual assistant, third party, just send a reminder, do a few follow-ups, and yeah, like
yeah,
absolute game changer, has totally changed the cash flow for this business. And yeah, it was, yeah, we're really happy with the outcome of that one. But even being able to take, some workload off a business owner's plate, freeing, if you were doing 1 or 2 hours less admin per day, that equates to 5 to 10 hours per week. 5 to 10 hours where you're doing billable work or you're doing high level strategy work. How does that transform your business? So that's where the return on investment comes in, by being able to allocate your time more effectively.
yeah. And I suppose, being able to take a holiday, like you were saying earlier on, just the amount that you're able to recharge your own energy, you're able to get inspired again to think about new ideas for your business. That's huge for business owners to be able to step away and take a holiday. It's usually when they come back, they get a huge period of growth. So, a VA is the person that's going to allow you to be able to do that, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. It's just about having that support system around you. That can look like a VA, but it can look like other things too. Like who in your network, in your friends, family, children, or business partners, or colleagues, or referral partners, who in your network is able to help you in addition to your VA as well, to be able to take that break and come back refreshed and help
Yeah.
your business to grow.
Fantastic. Are there any other sort of wins that you've seen for businesses with the return on investment on hiring a VA?
We usually measure return on investment in a few ways. So I've talked a lot about, I guess, the time saved. So the hours that the admin tasks can be freed up to be able to spend on, the billable or revenue generating work. That goes hand in hand with freeing up time to be able to focus on revenue growth as well, to take on more clients and more projects. There's a lot of cost saving, and we haven't focused too much on the cost so far in the podcast, but the cost savings, it's about a 75 to 80% sometimes saving compared to Australian labor. So it's a huge cost saving compared to a local hire. Plus, there's no office overhead as well. Like you don't have to worry about parking for your team member. You don't have to worry about having to pay for, their laptop or their computer, those sorts of things.
Mm,
So reducing those office overhead costs is another saving. And lastly, it's having someone else to help. You
yeah.
can just get better efficiencies, faster turnaround times. There's less errors because there might be double checks along the way, and overall, hopefully, it leads to just a better client experience for your clients.
Yeah, I think for us, one of the things is we're a remote business. So all of our team are remote workers. And, it is great to be able to have virtual assistants because we don't have physical offices. And that is a huge saving for businesses these days, is to be able to operate remotely, really cuts your costs. So let's talk about the financials a little bit then. So, how does the pricing usually work with hiring a VA?
Yeah, so we operate a pretty flat pricing. And our recruitment fee is a flat rate at 1,500 plus GST when this podcast is recorded in
Yeah.
August 2025.
May change.
And our ongoing support fee at the moment is a 500 per month, and we like to work with clients for a minimum of 12 months. So I would recommend to our clients, if you're looking at getting a virtual assistant, I'd look at it in terms of a long-term uh, type of strategy for your business. The reason for it is it's going to take time to obviously train and invest in someone to help in your business. So with that long-term, I guess, vision and focus in mind, I'd have a budget of about $1,200 to $1,500 per month on an ongoing basis if you're looking at someone on full time.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, extremely reasonable, the experience I've had with hiring VAs, and it's making sure that they're also receiving, you know, the income that they need to earn as well, which is great. So, are VAs typically part time or full time or just, like freelancers, task based? How does that work?
Yeah, you can get VAs who are doing full time, part time, a couple of hour blocks here and there. At Mintrix, we only specialize in full time equivalent hours, and that's because we want to invest in our people and we want to invest in their training and to upskill them on areas of that I've covered business etiquette and those soft skills like the communication. So to be able to deliver that high quality support, we do a lot of work behind the scenes. It makes more sense for us anyway to look at full-time equivalent roles. However, if a business only has a budget for part-time or task-based support, there are platforms out there. Upwork and Fiverr are the two that come to mind, where you can connect with freelance virtual assistants for short-term or project-based work. And there's various Facebook groups out there as well that offer different virtual assistant support. But yeah, if anyone's looking for full-time, that's definitely something that we can assist with.
Okay. And what does something that's a concern that I hear often about VAs is, well, just with hiring any employees as well, is around data security concerns and non disclosure agreements. How do you handle those?
Yeah, so as part of our contracts, we do cover things like data security and confidentiality, which we had drafted by a lawyer. However, if a client has their own NDA, we're happy to work with their preferred terms as well. When it comes to data security, there is an element of trust when you give someone access to, some of your files, your Canva creations, your Shopify backend, those sorts of things, right? The trust that, they're not going to publish something without my approval, for example. However, yeah, I would just say that if it's something that you would give to your Australian employee that's bringing their laptop home, there's no difference between that and having a remote worker in the Philippines. The main thing would be to ensure that you've got extra safeguards in place. So if you've got a preferred IT provider, have a chat to them about the solutions they might offer in terms of desktop monitoring, antivirus security, having data security measures, or even cybersecurity insurance. Those are the
Yeah.
sorts of areas that we can refer on to or recommend if you didn't have your own preferred supplier. But that's definitely where I would start, to make sure that your passwords are encrypted and that you're not giving your login account to people. You set them up as a user. So as an example, you don't give your zero login details to someone, you set them up as a additional user. So same principle applies to all the other softwares that you have.
Fantastic. And how do you see the role of VAs evolving with AI tools and becoming more mainstream? I think, I'm noticing, obviously, myself working in marketing, things are changing so rapidly with AI at the moment. Where do you see it changing with VAs?
I think in business and in life, there's always going to be the human element that is important. Um, I'm a big fan of AI and the fact that it's, making a lot of my tasks a lot easier with automations and things like that. So, I would say that AI doesn't replace what the virtual assistant can do. If anything, it will add more value to a virtual assistant. 5 years ago, the VA industry, without things like ChatGPT, a VA's got to Google it, work it out for themselves. Now you can just, ask ChatGPT a quick question and they can really point you in the right direction a lot faster.
Yeah.
So I see AI as speeding up things like, some of the tasks, drafting emails, creating reports, generating content ideas. It can help, but it won't, I don't see it replacing.
Yeah. And are you incorporating AI and training around that into the onboarding and the skill set of the VAs that you're hiring?
Yeah, we definitely do that. So we do more basic training, because what I find is if we do too specialized training in a certain field, it wouldn't like something that might help a e-commerce business might not be helpful for a plumbing business, and so on and so forth. So I do cover more generic type training and soft skills. In terms of the AI tools, we teach our VAs how to do proper prompting. The more information you give to AI tools like ChatGPT, the better your outcome will be. And, being able to use different tools like, AI is now in so many platforms, from Canva to transcription software to, all the meeting recorders, Otter AI and all of those. So by sort of knowing what tools are most effective for which outcome, that's something that we can upskill the VAs in, and to know what tools are available.
Okay, fantastic. And finally, what's your number one tip for someone hiring a VA for the first time?
My one tip for hiring a VA for the first time was to have a bit of clarity up front. So, to sit down in one of our discovery sessions to work out what tasks you can delegate, what outcomes you could expect, and then what tools you'll need to do that. So, by working out a bit of a time audit on, what you're spending your time on, or other people in your team are spending their time on, we can help to identify those tasks, work out what the outcomes are, and then implement.
Fantastic. And so tell me, what's next for you and Mintrix Advisory?
Next for us, well, there's a lot happening at the moment. We do have a growing client base in Victoria and New South Wales. We're trying to expand into more Western Australia and Queensland, probably towards the later part of the year. And yeah, our goal is to have Mintrix as a trusted name when it comes to business owners needing the right support across the country. So in helping with that, we're exhibiting at the Melbourne Franchise Expo at the end of August, which is a huge milestone for us, and we'd love to celebrate that and take part in more expos, more events, be able to build that brand awareness, and to help small business owners really discover how a full-time VA can really transform the way that they're working.
Well, thank you so much, Tricia, for everything you've shared with us today. It's been so valuable for everybody, I'm sure, listening, whether they're starting out with hiring a VA and thinking about it, or whether they've had experiences before and picked up some tips today on how they can make that experience even better in the future. But what we'll do is in the show notes, we'll include your contact details so that if anybody wants to continue on the conversation and have a chat to you in more detail around hiring a virtual assistant and how you can potentially help them, then they can reach out to you. Would email be best for you, or do you prefer to be contacted via social media?
Yeah, either or. So email at hello@mintrix.com.au. That actually comes direct to me. There's a forward on that one. So you're welcome to drop me an email. Otherwise, we're on most of the social media platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn. Welcome to send me a message. We always make
Yeah.
sure our VA team are checking those with the right alerts on. And and in person, if anyone is in Melbourne, our office is in Thomastown. You're welcome to drop by for a coffee anytime. And yeah, we'd love to connect with any of the listeners who might be interested in having a chat.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sure our listeners, if you haven't already, go back and have a listen to Tricia's previous podcast as well. I'm sure you'd love that as well. Thanks, Tricia.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thanks so much for tuning into today's conversation with Tricia from Mintrix Advisory. I hope this episode has given you the clarity on what virtual assistants can really bring to your business and how to set yourself up for success when hiring one. From the importance of clear communication and onboarding to building trust and avoiding burnout, Tricia's advice is a great reminder that delegating well isn't about losing control. It's about creating space to focus on what matters most. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow the Pet Biz Project and leave us a quick review. It helps us to reach more passionate pet business owners just like you. And you can also connect with us on social media for behind the scenes updates and upcoming episodes. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep putting pets at the heart of your business.